My name is Sarah Lapp, and I grew up in a home where nothing useful got thrown away and nothing that broke got left unfixed. My mother kept a small brown bottle of hydrogen peroxide in nearly every room, not because she read it somewhere or saw it on a program, because her mother did, and her mother before that. And every one of those women knew something that most folks today have simply forgotten. That little bottle costs about $1, sometimes less, and it does more honest work around a home than half the products lining the shelves at the store. I want to walk you through the house today, room by room, and show you exactly what it can do. If this is the kind of plain, useful help you came looking for, go ahead and subscribe. And tell me down in the comments what state you are watching from. The peroxide I am talking about throughout this entire video is standard 3% hydrogen peroxide. That is the kind in the brown bottle at your pharmacy or grocery store. It costs next to nothing and it is safe to use around your home when handled sensibly. The stronger concentrations, 12%, 35%, food grade, those are a different matter entirely. They can cause serious burns. We are not talking about those today. When I say hydrogen peroxide, I mean the plain 3% from the medicine aisle. Keep that in mind throughout. Now let me tell you briefly why it works, because it helps to understand before we get into the how. Water is 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. Hydrogen peroxide is 2 hydrogen atoms and 2 oxygen atoms. That 1 extra oxygen atom is what does all the work. When peroxide touches organic material, bacteria, fungus, mold, insect shells, biological waste, it releases that oxygen in a burst. That fizzing and bubbling you see is not something to worry about. That is the peroxide doing exactly what it is supposed to do. And when it finishes working, it breaks down into plain water and oxygen. No harsh residue, no fumes lingering in the air. Nothing left behind that should not be there. Now let us walk through the house. The kitchen sees more contamination than any other room in the house, and most people do not clean it as thoroughly as they think they do. A damp cloth wiped across a counter does not clean it. More often than not, it spreads bacteria from one spot to another. Hydrogen peroxide does something different. It kills on contact. After you finish preparing food, especially anything involving raw chicken, pork, or fish, spray your countertop with 3% peroxide straight from a spray bottle. Let it sit for 5 minutes. Wipe it clean. The fizzing means it is working. Cutting boards need extra attention because the grooves and knife marks in them trap bacteria that wiping cannot reach. Spray the whole surface, let it sit, rinse it off. Do this every time you use the board for raw meat. My grandmother kept 2 spray bottles near the kitchen sink, one with plain white vinegar, one with hydrogen peroxide. She would spray one, wipe the surface, then spray the other and let it sit. I want to be clear about something here, because I will repeat this warning later. Never mix vinegar and hydrogen peroxide together in the same bottle. When combined, they form peracetic acid, which is harsh on your lungs, skin, and eyes. Used separately, one after the other, they work very well together. Together in one bottle, you have something you do not want near your face. Keep them in separate bottles always. Food scraps, grease, and soap scum build up inside kitchen drains over time and create a sludge that smells bad and breeds drain flies. Those little moth-like insects hovering near your sink come from that buildup. Once a week, pour about a cup of 3% peroxide straight down the drain. Let it sit for at least an hour, overnight if you can manage it, then flush with hot water. It clears the buildup, kills the odor at its source, and knocks out drain fly eggs before they hatch. 1 cup of peroxide and about 2 minutes of your time. Spills inside the refrigerator go unnoticed longer than spills anywhere else. Old juice under the vegetable drawer. Drippings from meat on the shelf. These sit quietly and grow things you cannot see. When you clean out your refrigerator, spray the shelves and interior walls with 3% peroxide. Let it sit a few minutes, then wipe everything out with a clean cloth. It kills mold and bacteria without leaving any residue that could get onto your food. No chemical smell afterward. Nothing to rinse repeatedly before you feel comfortable putting food back. The kitchen rag may be the dirtiest object in the average home. Warm, damp, used on every surface, then left in a pile. Bacteria multiply in exactly those conditions. Soak your dish rags in equal parts peroxide and water for about 30 minutes, 2 or 3 times a week. Rinse them and let them air dry fully. Sponges can be handled the same way. It will not make an old sponge last forever, but it keeps them from spreading more than they clean. Most people reach for bleach the moment they spot mold in the bathroom, and bleach works well on smooth, hard surfaces like tile and glass where nothing can absorb it. But on porous materials, grout, caulk, drywall, bleach does not penetrate deeply enough. It kills what it can see on the surface and leaves the roots alive underneath. The mold comes back, sometimes within days, because nothing actually reached the source. Hydrogen peroxide, because of the way it fizzes and works into surfaces, reaches what bleach cannot. Pour 3% peroxide into a spray bottle and apply it undiluted directly to the moldy grout or caulk. Let it sit for 10 to 15 minutes. Scrub with a stiff brush and wipe the area clean. For stubborn spots, a little baking soda gives you more scrubbing power without adding anything harmful. One honest word. If you are facing a mold patch larger than roughly a 3 by 3 foot square, that is the point where health authorities say it is time to call a professional. Mold that size usually means moisture inside the wall itself, and a spray bottle is not the right tool for that job. Spray the inside of the bowl with 3% peroxide and let it sit for 30 minutes before scrubbing. Pour some under the rim, which is where bacteria and buildup collect and rarely get touched. Wipe the outside of the toilet, the tank, the seat, the base, with a cloth dampened in peroxide. The outside gets touched constantly and cleaned far less often than the inside. Your toothbrush sits out in the open in a room that is regularly filled with airborne particles. Once a week, soak it in a small cup of 3% peroxide for 15 to 20 minutes. Rinse it well before use. Simple, costs almost nothing, and more effective than most of the specialty cleaning products made for this purpose. Pillows absorb sweat and skin oils over time, and they collect dust mites, which are among the most common triggers for allergy symptoms and nighttime congestion. Most people never treat their pillows for this at all. Spray your pillow lightly with a solution of equal parts 3% peroxide and water. Let it dry completely in the air before putting the pillowcase back on. Sunlight speeds up the drying and adds its own sanitizing effect. Do this once a month or more often if someone in the home suffers from allergies. Add a cup of 3% peroxide to the rinse cycle when you wash your bedding. It disinfects and brightens whites without the fabric damage that chlorine bleach causes over repeated use. Here's the trouble with a remedy like this one. You hear it, you nod, and 3 months later, when the ants are marching across your counter at 9 at night, you can't remember what went in it. So you buy the spray. $8. That's why I put these on paper. Every remedy I know, sorted by the problem, pests, stains, smells, sickness. 1 page, and there it is. It's at plainhomekeeping.com. Or if you're watching on the television, hold your phone up to the square on the screen, and it'll take you straight there. Plain Homekeeping. Calm. The mattress is one of the hardest things to clean in a home, and one of the most neglected. For spot stains, dab 3% peroxide directly onto the spot with a cloth. Let it sit a few minutes, blot it gently, and allow the mattress to air dry completely before making the bed. Peroxide works particularly well on biological stains. For general freshening, spray the surface lightly with the diluted solution and let it dry fully with a window open. Test a small hidden area first, as peroxide has a mild bleaching effect, though this rarely causes trouble on most mattress fabrics. The bedroom doorknob and light switch are touched every single day, often first thing in the morning and last thing at night. A quick wipe with a cloth dampened in peroxide twice a week takes about 30 seconds and stops those surfaces from being transfer points for whatever illness is going around. Add half a cup of 3% hydrogen peroxide to a load of whites along with your regular detergent. It brightens and whitens without the long-term fiber damage that chlorine bleach causes over time. For colored laundry, test a hidden seam first. For most stains, grass, blood, food, sweat, dab 3% peroxide directly onto the stain before washing. Let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes and then launder as usual. For blood, use the peroxide cold, not warm. Heat sets blood stains rather than releasing them, and that is a mistake that cannot be undone. Front-loading washing machines are prone to mold around the rubber door seal because moisture collects there and never fully dries between uses. You notice it eventually by the smell. Run an empty hot cycle with 2 cups of 3% peroxide poured into the drum. Wipe the rubber seal thoroughly with a cloth dampened in peroxide. Then make a habit of leaving the door open between washes so the drum can breathe. Do this once a month, and the smell problem does not develop in the first place. Sofas and armchairs get touched all day long and almost never get disinfected. A light mist of equal parts peroxide and water on fabric surfaces, allowed to dry fully, reduces surface bacteria and freshens the fabric between deeper cleanings. Always test on a hidden spot first, as certain dyes can react even to mild peroxide. Remote controls, game controllers, and keyboards are among the most frequently touched objects in a home and among the least often cleaned. Most people never clean them at all. Dampen a cloth, not dripping, just barely damp, with 3% peroxide. Wipe down these surfaces and let them air dry. Do not spray directly onto electronics. A dampened cloth only. Once a week is a reasonable habit, more often when someone in the house is sick. For tile or sealed hardwood, add half a cup of 3% peroxide to a gallon of warm water in your mop bucket. It disinfects without leaving a soapy residue and does not need rinsing. For unsealed wood, skip this. Moisture damages unsealed wood over time, and peroxide is no exception to that rule. Children touch everything, put things in their mouths, and sit directly on the floor. And they are still developing the immune systems that will protect them through adulthood. A clean environment matters here more than almost anywhere else in the house. Hard plastic toys can be wiped down with a cloth dampened in 3% peroxide and left to air dry completely before going back to the children. Soft stuffed animals can be sprayed lightly with the diluted solution and set in the sun to dry. Do this regularly during cold and flu season, or any time a child has been sick. Peroxide is one of the most effective things for biological stain removal on fabric. Dab it on while the stain is still fresh, let it fizz, and blot it away. Then spray the surface itself with peroxide to disinfect the area after cleanup. Let it sit a few minutes and wipe it clean. Your keyboard accumulates skin oils, food debris, and bacteria at a rate that would genuinely alarm you if you examined it closely. Wipe your keyboard and mouse with a cloth lightly dampened in 3% peroxide. Wring the cloth out well so no moisture gets into the gaps. Let everything dry fully before use. Wipe your desk surface the same way, particularly around the areas where your hands rest and where your phone sits. Your phone screen travels with you all day, gets set on every surface, and gets held against your face. Wipe it down daily with a cloth barely dampened in peroxide. Let it air dry. Pens, scissors, and other shared desk supplies are small transfer points for bacteria that rarely get anyone's attention. A weekly wipe costs almost nothing and takes less than a minute. For soft-bodied insects like aphids, spider mites, and whiteflies, mix 1 teaspoon of 3% peroxide into 1 gallon of water and spray it directly onto the affected plants. Make sure to coat the undersides of leaves, because that is where most of these pests hide and lay their eggs. Test on a single leaf first, and wait a day before treating the whole plant. And always spray in the early morning or late evening, never in direct afternoon sun. The combination of peroxide and strong sunlight can burn the leaves, and that is a problem you do not want on top of the one you already have. The same diluted solution that handles aphids also works on powdery mildew and other fungal conditions on plant leaves. Apply it the same way and repeat every few days until the condition clears up. Before planting, soak seeds in a solution of about 1 teaspoon of 3% peroxide to a pint of water for 30 minutes. This softens the seed coat and kills mold or bacteria that might interfere with sprouting. Rinse the seeds after soaking and plant as usual. Many gardeners find that seeds treated this way germinate faster and more consistently. Mosquitoes need standing water to breed, and even a small amount in a plant saucer or a low spot in the yard is enough. A splash of 3% peroxide in standing water kills the larvae before they grow. Refresh it after rain, as peroxide breaks down when exposed to light and air. When someone in the house is ill, the room they are resting in becomes a concentration point for whatever they are carrying. Wipe down all hard surfaces daily during illness: the nightstand, doorknob, light switch, any shared device. Change and wash bedding with peroxide added to the rinse cycle. When the illness passes, do a thorough wipe down of the whole room before putting it back to regular use. This is not about being fearful. Illness spreads through surfaces more than most people realize, and $1's worth of peroxide used well can interrupt that chain before it reaches the next person in the house. Hydrogen peroxide breaks down when exposed to light. That is why it comes in a brown bottle. Store it in that same brown bottle in a dark cabinet, away from heat. Once opened, most bottles at 3% remain effective for about 6 months. If you want to check whether yours is still active, put a small amount on a metal spoon. If it fizzes, it is working. If nothing happens, it has broken down and you need a fresh bottle. Keep it away from your eyes. If it contacts your eyes, rinse immediately with a large amount of water. Wear gloves if your skin is sensitive. And again, never mix it with vinegar in the same container, and never mix it with bleach. Both combinations produce compounds that are harmful to breathe. Do not use anything stronger than 3% for household purposes. The higher concentrations have caused real harm and should not be in a home without proper training and equipment. I believe in being straight with you, so I want to say this plainly. Hydrogen peroxide is a remarkable thing for $1's worth of household product, but it has limits. It will not reach mold that has spread inside a wall. That requires a professional. It will not eliminate a pest infestation that has taken hold in a structure. It handles what you can see and spray directly. A deep infestation needs more than a spray bottle. It will not replace a veterinarian for your animals. Never put peroxide directly on a pet's skin or in their water. It is an irritant to animals. Treat the surfaces around them, not the animals themselves. And it will not replace a doctor for your family when the situation calls for one. Use it well for what it genuinely does, and know when to reach for something else. That is not a failure. That is good sense. My grandmother had a word for people who knew how to keep a home without reaching for something expensive at every turn. She called them capable. It was about the highest thing she could say about a person. You do not need a cabinet full of different products. You do not need to spend a great deal of money to keep a clean and healthy home. One small brown bottle, used thoughtfully, handles more than most people ever think to ask of it. I hope what I have shared here serves your home as well as it has served mine. Thank you for sitting with me through this. Subscribe if you want more old household wisdom, and the next video is right there on your screen when you are ready for it.